We're starting in Likutey Halakhos, Orach Chaim, Chelik Gimel, Hilkhos Rosh Chodesh, halacha Aleph. For those that have the standard 8-volume sets, it's page 166, the right-hand column towards the top. Halacha Aleph. The first issue Rabbi Nasan addresses is Mashekoiren Parshas HaTamid Rosh Chodesh. He's going to explain why it is that the Torah portion that we read on Rosh Chodesh is the portion that speaks about the bringing of the korbon tamid, which was a sheep that was brought both in the morning, Shachris, and in the afternoon, the tamid shel Shachar and tamid shel Bein Arabayim. Al pi ma shekosav Rabbeinu Neira Yoir, that this discussion is based on what Rabbi Nachman writes in Likutey Moharan, in the first half of Likutey Moharan, chapter 44, Shebechinas tamid hu tikun hatfila. Rabbi Nasan writes there that the korbon tamid and everything that it represents helps to correct and improve and perfect one's tefillah. Bechinas, and Rabbi Nasan bases his discussion there on a statement in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Tfilos keneged tmidim tiknun, that the prayers that we have today, specifically Shachris and Mincha, correspond to the korbon tamids that were brought in the Holy Temple in the Beis Hamikdash in the morning and in the evening. Ayin Sham, look over there in Likutey Moharan, in the first half of Likutey Moharan, chapter 44, where Rabbi Nasan gives several interpretations of this statement in the Gemara. Now, the way Rabbi Nasan interprets over there, one of the ways is that he says, Tfilos keneged. This is a play on the words. Tfilos keneged. The word keneged means to opposite. When a person experiences opposition to their tefillah, in what manner? One form of opposition is the thoughts that come to a person, all kinds of outside thoughts. A person's trying to concentrate on the words that they're saying and concentrate on whom they're standing before, because we know the Gemara emphasizes that if a person davens without mental concentration, it's like a body without a soul. Such a prayer is like a body without a soul, meaning it's very weak. So that it's extremely important for a Jew to have their mind connected to their mouth when they're speaking words of tefillah. And yet, Rabbi Nasan tells us in many places in the Likutey Moharan that one of the times when a person experiences the greatest degree of mental confusion is when they're davening. In fact, Rabbi Nasan says one of the Hebrew words that means tefillah is the word tehillah. And the word tehillah in the Hebrew also means tohala, confusion. There's a pasuk, Ubamalachav Yosim tohala. Hashem places confusion among his angels. Because Rabbi Nasan says that's one of the most confusing times of a person's day, where a person would want their mind to be on one thing only, and that's the words that they're saying and whom they're standing before, and yet every moment their brain is being bombarded with all kinds of thoughts. Everything in the world comes into their mind at the time that they're standing there talking to Hashem. So Rabbi Nasan says there, Tfilos keneged, when a person is experiencing negdiut, hitnagdut, opposition to his tefillah, what should the person do? Tamidim tiknun. The korbon tamid is a tikkun for that. And Rabbi Nasan in that chapter gives about 4 or 5 different explanations as to what he means by the korbon tamid. One explanation is Eretz Yisrael, because we find that the Torah calls Eretz Yisrael Tamid Einei Hashem Elokecha Bo. The eyes of Hashem are constantly upon her. That word tamid, constantly, consistently. So Rabbi Nasan says when a person's davening, if they picture themselves in Eretz Yisrael, if they attach themselves to the holiness of Eretz Yisrael, that will serve as a powerful shield to block out these outside thoughts, to help them concentrate better. And Rabbi Nasan gives several other explanations. Now Rabbi Nasan tells us, V'hinei pegam hatfila hu al yidei pegam halavana shehi bechinas malchus bechinas tefila. We know that there are 3 things that are referred to as one: tefillah, malchus, and the moon. we know that David HaMelech is the symbol of the kingdom of the Jewish people, the eternal kingdom of the Jewish people. And David HaMelech says in his book Tehillim, Va'ani Tefillah, I am prayer. That's what I'm all about. I am wall-to-wall tefillah. That's what David HaMelech's whole life was. And he's the one who wrote the book of Psalms, the book of Tehillim, so that we know that tefillah is synonymous with Malchus, kingdom. David HaMelech, each one of the tzaddikim represents a different attribute. Avram Avinu is chesed, the man of kindness. Yitzchak Avinu is pachad, serving Hashem with fear, with awe, ready to sacrifice himself completely for Hashem. Each one represents something different. David HaMelech, King David, is known as King David. That's what he is, the symbol of Malchus, and he is Tefillah. And also we find that the Gemara tells us that the moon is the symbol of Malchus. And the Gemara actually goes on to show how the same path that the moon follows from the beginning of a month through the end of the month, whereby starting from day 1 through day 15, the moon grows. It gets larger and larger and larger. We get to see more of it, more of it, more of it, until on the 15th of the month, the moon is completely full. It's a full circle. Then, starting the 16th, it starts descending, getting smaller and smaller and smaller, till the end of the month, where it just about disappears. And the Gemara shows that this is exactly how the kingdom of the Jewish people went. Starting from Avraham Avinu, who is one of the first people in the Torah who's referred to as an aspect of kingdom, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yehuda, and so on and so forth. It climbs until the 14th generation from Avraham Avinu was David HaMelech. The word David, Dalid, Vav Dalid, is 14. The 15th generation was his son Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, about whom the Torah tells us that during his kingdom, the kingdom was perfect. It reached perfection. He ruled over heavenly beings and earthly beings. That's the wording of the Gemara. He ruled over the angels, over the Shadim, and he ruled over... So that's when the Malchus was B'Shleimus. Just as on the 15th of the month is when the moon is in its fullest. Starting the next generation, the son of King Solomon, that's where the trouble began. The Gemara tells us that he followed the advice. He was given advice by elderly people, and he was given advice by youths. And he chose to follow the advice of the youths over the advice of the elderly people, and this resulted in a split in the kingdom, where suddenly we see the kingdom of the Jewish people being split into two, the 2 tribes and the 10 tribes. And it kept declining and declining, getting worse and worse and worse, until the 29th generation was Tzidkiyahu HaMelech, who was the one who was blinded. King Nebuchadnezzar had him blinded, his eyesight was taken away completely, etc., which represented again the light of the moon being extinguished completely just about. It is at the end of the month. So we see that the Levana represents Malchus, and Tefillah is Malchus. Therefore, Rabbi Nasan Zal tells us, Vehine pegam ha-tefillah, when we talk about a defectiveness, a deficiency in Tefillah, hualidei pegam halavana, that corresponds to a defectiveness or a deficiency in the light of the moon. Shehi bechinas Malchus, which is the symbol of kingdom, bechinas Tefillah. V'alkein, and we know that the moon is defective. When Hashem originally created the sun and the moon, they were supposed to be equal in size. The Torah refers to them as Shnei Ma'oros Hagedolim, the 2 large lanterns. And then the Gemara tells us that based on a whole scenario that took place, Hashem ended up diminishing the size of the moon. The light of the moon was decreased. And that's referred to as Pegimas Halavana, the deficiency, the defectiveness of the moon. V'alkein, and therefore, Rosh Chodesh, on the day of Rosh Chodesh, which is the day in Judaism that's declared as the day of rectifying the moon, correcting the moon. She'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the day upon which Hashem said to the Jewish people, Haviu alai kapara, I want you to bring a sacrifice on my behalf, Hashem said, for the fact that I committed this crime against the moon in that I decreased its light. The Gemara tells a whole conversation that took place between the moon and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How Hashem said, the moon said, why did you decrease my light? Hashem said, well, you know what? I'll give you this and this to make up for it. So the moon said, but so what? Why do I have to be less? Hashem said, you know what? I'll give you this to make up for it. Until finally, in the end, Hashem says, you know what? You're right. You're right. I've wronged you. And in order to show that I'm sincere, the Jewish people, once a month, on your day, on Moon Day. What's Moon Day? Rosh Chodesh. When the moon is reborn. That's the birthday of the moon. When the moon starts fresh again, the Jews are going to bring a special sacrifice for Hashem. It's called Soer Lashem, to atone Kaviyachol for Hashem's, this act of Hashem. Oz Maschil Hatikun Shel Halavona. So therefore, this day of Rosh Chodesh is the day when the moon is being rectified. Kioz mascheles lehismalois. That's the day when the moon starts growing again. Its light is on the rise. Alkein koirenos parshas tamid. Therefore, if the moon is on the rise, it means that the tefillah is on the rise. Because we said before that tefillah and the moon correspond to each other. They're both tied into this malchus, to King David. That's why on Rosh Chodesh specifically we read the parsha of the tamid, shehi bechinas tikun hatfilah hanal, because Rabbi Nasan told us in Likutey Moharan that when a person is experiencing opposition to their tefillah, the way that they correct it is through tamid, through the korbon tamid. Kioz b'Rosh Chodesh maschil tikun halavana, shehi tikun hatfilah kanal, because it's on Rosh Chodesh that the rectification of the moon starts happening. The moon is being corrected. The light of the moon is being refreshed and rebuilt, built up again. And therefore that means the tefillah is being built up again. And since Rabbi Nachman told us that the way that we build up the tefillah is through tamid, that's why on Rosh Chodesh we read the Parshas Tamid. Because on Rosh Chodesh we're involved in building up the moon, which is synonymous with building up the tefillah. With this, we conclude. This is one of the very, very short chapters in Likutey Halakhos. This is the first discussion on the topic of Rosh Chodesh.